Welcome into the Irish Squad Show. I'm Joe George, and if I never see the Wildcat again, I'll be very happy.
And I'm Alan Pinkett, former Domer running back, and tonight was heartbreak.
I'm Allison Hayes. I've been covering the Irish for 20 years in South Bend. A heartbreaking loss for these Irish. Are they looking for a new defensive coordinator?
I'm Reggie Brooks, 1993 All-American, and I'm just devastated by the loss that we just suffered, 2 in a row. I don't know where we go from here.
Play like a champion today. It's the Fighting Irish Squad Show. Everything Notre Dame Fighting Irish every week. Breaking down the biggest news and game-changing plays the way only Locked On Podcast Network can. Wake up the echoes. The Fighting Irish Squad Show starts now.
Welcome in, everybody, to the Irish Squad Show here on the Locked On Irish YouTube channel. Joe George, Alan Pinkett, Reggie Brooks, and Allison Hayes here with you as the Irish suffer a devastating loss and start the season 0-2. We'll talk about what we saw in the game, the defensive struggles that are so different from last year. I was at this game last year in College Station. Totally different story. We'll talk about the offense, how CJ Carr performed, our biggest positives and negatives in this one as well. Plus, you guys will be welcome in the YouTube comments here as well. So jump on into the comment section and let us know how you're feeling about Notre Dame starting the season 0-2. Alan, we'll start with you tonight. How you feeling after this loss?
Well, I'm upset. I'm disappointed more than anything. I didn't anticipate that Texas A&M would have their way offensively against our defense the way they did. I mean, they put up over 400 yards of offense, and that I used to think that no one could do that against the Notre Dame defense. But I got to give credit to Texas A&M. They had a lot of grit. They had a lot of fight, and they just kept coming back. And, every time Notre Dame had a chance to put them down, they just kept fighting back. And it's one of those losses that hurts even more because it was so close and could have gone either way, but it's still a loss. And whether you lose by 50 or you lose by 1, it's still a loss, and it hurts. And I think we'll just have to see if the team can bounce back from this and start a positive trend.
Reggie, what are your thoughts on the game tonight?
Very, very frustrated. I really thought, again, I will say I'm pleased with how the offense kind of bounced back from the struggles they had a couple of weeks ago, and getting the ball back in the hands of Jeremiyah Love in the running game. They established that, and again, it actually helps establish CJ Carr a little more in the passing game because we had the success we did with Jadarian Price and Jeremiyah Love in the running game. But defensively, I'm at a loss. And then, you lose Leonard Moore and Christian Gray. He's definitely struggling with the penalties and, just not being in position. So I don't know where we go from here, considering where this defense is. You're not going to win a championship without the defense playing at a high level. And until that is rectified, this team is going to continue to struggle. So good things happen in terms of the improvement on the offensive side of the ball, but defensively, we got a long way to go.
Allison?
I think the biggest difference from this year to last year is last year with the game on the line, I had no doubt in my mind that Notre Dame's defense was going to win the game. They were going to finish it. They were going to close it out. They were going to stop them. They were going to cause a turnover, whatever they needed. They were going to get that done. And I don't know about you guys, and I hate saying this, but when it came down to the final possession for them, the final series, I just felt like they were going to score, that Notre Dame was not going to be able to stop them. And I was hoping I was wrong. And unfortunately, that is, it did not end that way. They couldn't get it done at the very end. So it's frustrating to watch that. For the second straight week, I thought Notre Dame was the better team and really should have won both of these two games. And now I'm scratching my head and I don't know what to think about this team. Defensively, I guess, is the biggest point, because to your point, Reggie, offense, I thought huge improvement and looked so much better. And there's a lot of positives there to work off of, but scratching my head on the defense.
Well, I shared that same sentiment with you, Allison, after the botched extra point. I just at first I thought, okay, well, all those people that bet on Notre Dame, there goes that hook because they're only going to win by 6. But then I started to think, well, shoot, sets up perfectly for A&M, and hadn't stopped them all night long. So we are left with a lot of questions about the defense.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that, as they pointed out on the broadcast, and Al and I were quickly talking about as the game was wrapping up, that you would have preferred that holding call to not happen on the kickoff return touchdown. Give the offense, 3 minutes to drive back down the field and try to score. Because as you guys all said, they looked great tonight. CJ Carr, Love, Price, like they were rolling on offense. Really, it was an impressive night from them. But the defense just, I know you got to change a defensive coordinator, but it is shocking to see how much of a drop off it's been in just one season. And the schedule is not great the rest of the year. I think there's going to be a lot of Notre Dame fans who are, really concerned and doubtful of what can happen this season. I know there's the Notre Dame boost. Like we all kind of know it exists, right? Within the we know it'll help them maybe in the end, but this is a tough way to start the season for sure.
Well, I would say that except for when we're playing the teams on the schedule, we need to root for all those teams to win as many of those games as possible to make it so that when Notre Dame does beat them, because I have no doubt that they could win out from here. But we're just going to have to become fans of the opponents. And then when we play them, that we got to house them. We got to, sort of beat them real bad to leave no doubt. But I think it's going to be like that. I don't anticipate any one team being undefeated this year. So I think that if you can limit it to 2 losses and have good showings and play against some competition that will be ranked later in the season, that they'll have a good chance. But right now, we just got to win one.
I got to disagree with. I think this is it. I'm sorry.
I agree.
Come back from 0-2. I just don't see how you do that unless there's complete carnage in college football. And I just don't see that happening with some of the teams you have out there. And again, with some of the schedules you have, it's going to be hard to see, that many teams, and I've had this conversation with a few of my guys that I played with. Hey, kind of agree with you, Alan, that, hey, you're going to have some guys there's some teams that are going to have, 3 losses. But I just don't think the losses that Notre Dame has suffered this early, I don't see how they come back from that. Go 10-2 would be nice, but not having a conference championship, that's going to really put a dent in our opportunity to make the playoffs with that type of, with these type of losses. Because I don't see Miami winning out. I don't see A&M winning out. It would be nice if they did, but, A&M is in the SEC. In Miami, I didn't see I just didn't see where they were that much better from last year. And again, they went 8-4 and struggled to make it make it in the ACC. And you're going to have some team that's going to beat them. And one of the teams that just really stands out to me in the ACC is Georgia Tech.
Well, the CFP changes this year. One of the big things that they focused on is strength of schedule because of the arguments that they had last year. And so now Notre Dame only has 2 ranked teams on their schedule and nobody else ranked the whole rest of the way unless some things change. And they could. We could see some of those teams end up in the rankings, and then Notre Dame is going to have to really dominate them and blow them out. And the conference championship, I mean, they're also not putting as much emphasis on that. But again, Reggie, to your point, if you have a weak schedule the rest of the way and then no conference championship and you're just sitting there watching, they put themselves in a really tough position. And I think it's going to be very, very difficult for the Irish to make it in now.
I've never valued the conference championship. I've always thought there was only one prize out there, and that's the national championship. And true to form, the team that wins the national championship last year had 2 losses, but they were able to get in. I'll go off track just a little bit, because I applaud the fact that Notre Dame is an independent, and because of that, it has to put some meat on its schedule. But every now and then I get envious of like an Ohio State, what it would be like to be an Ohio State fan, where you go to the stadium and before you even walk in, your team's going to put 60 points up. I just wonder what that feels like, because we don't get that at Notre Dame.
It feels like you might this year. I mean, the offense is cooking so far through. I mean, and it wasn't, the points weren't as high in the Miami game, but by the way CJ played and how they played tonight, it feels like they're going to score a lot of points this year. It's just kind of, as we all mentioned at the beginning, the defense is the problem. I'm curious from all your guys' perspective, and Reggie, we can start with you on this one. Is there a specific moment or a point in this game where you really look like Notre Dame had a fatal flaw and why they lost this game to A&M?
Well, the biggest thing I saw was, again, the inability to get to the quarterback. You saw that last week, or a couple of weeks ago against Miami. Carson Beck had all time to throw. When are we going to attack the offense and blitz? It's very little blitzing that goes on because we're not getting home with 4 guys. It's just not happening right now. And we have some linebackers that are, to me, very athletic. They have the ability to get there, but I just don't see the attacking style defense that we saw last year. Where you man up and go after the quarterback and make sure he's uncomfortable and not able to sit back and make those throws. So until I see the defense really become a lot more aggressive, and I don't know what's going on in the defensive front, but we've got to get off the ball and get pressure on the quarterback. And if that's not happening, you're going to struggle. You have to get to the quarterback and impact that quarterback position and force them into bad throws and mistakes, because A&M is, at least in my mind, prone to, and you'll see it down the line, they're going to make some mistakes. They're not a disciplined enough team to be consistent, to run the table, or to have a big impact in the SEC.
Allison?
Yeah, well, defensively, I thought they looked somewhat better in the second half, really, until those last 2 drives from the Aggies, and that's where the wheels sort of came off there. But they had some improvement there. It forced a couple of punts, just allowed the field goals there, 2 of those. But then when you really needed those stops, they just couldn't get it done. The secondary is also a spot where we're just seeing guys kind of get targeted, get picked at, and Christian Gray, and this is the woman in me. I mean, I love him as a guy, as a player, as a person on that team. But man, we've got to see more improvement from him. He had moments last year where he would have, just a dumb play or a mistake or give up a critical moment. But then he'd also have a game-saving play. And so, he had that kind of like one extreme or the other. And so we're seeing that this year, where we're seeing a little too much on the other side of that. And we want to see him turn that around and be able to make those plays when they need them. Because then when you got a Don Schuler out for targeting, Leonard Moore is doing everything he can, but he's banged up. You're seeing them go after Hobbs, or going after that freshman that came in, Zachary. It was tough on that secondary tonight.
And I'm going to go ahead and agree with you, Reggie. I was really surprised at how we couldn't get to the quarter. Excuse me, I shouldn't say we. How Notre Dame couldn't get.
You guys get to say we.
Okay, all right. How Notre Dame couldn't get to the quarterback. I thought that because when they played Miami, Carson Beck, who is a projected first-round pick, I thought, okay, they're not going to see a better quarterback than that the rest of the year. So I thought that was the excuse. And that's not to say that this quarterback for Texas A&M wasn't bad, because he was slinging it all over the place. But the failure to put pressure on the quarterback, to get in his face, to get some QBRs, that was really worked to our detriment.
I'll look at the other side of the ball just to play devil's advocate a little bit, because I agree with everything you guys said. I mean, while Marcel Reed was good in this game, I mean, there were cornerbacks getting burnt left and right on deep passes that he was just missing them. But I mentioned at the very beginning, but I look back to, second half, you've got a 4th and 1, and you run this wildcat play that from the very beginning of the game was not working. I mean, Love is in the backfield in the beginning of the game. There's just guys, there's not a hat on a hat. Like there's just people not accounted for in this wildcat formation, and it works, at the end of the game, but early in the second half, it doesn't work. And they clearly want to run it, but it seemed to be a stubbornness within it that they really thought it was going to be effective, and it just wasn't. It was really the only negative with the offense in this game. And I hate to say, I feel like it was the only reason why they lost because of what happened on the defense, but I think just a different play call on that 4th and 1. It was the third offensive possession of the second half. This might be a very different football game for the Irish if they just run Jeremiyah Love normal like they should.
Well, what about Jadarian Price? I mean, I really feel Jadarian Price was more effective, and it's because, again, when Jeremiyah Love is in the game, defenses are going to lock in on him. So it would be nice to see, and they did it, against Miami a little bit. They had the two back set. When you have Jeremiyah Love and Jadarian Price in there, it puts a lot of pressure on the defense to actually look for both those guys. I mean, because Jeremiyah Love can be a decoy, but Jadarian Price, he had some big runs against Miami, had some big runs again here against Texas A&M. It'd be nice to see a little more two-back set to get both those guys in the game at the same time, to where it takes some of the pressure off of Jeremiyah Love, and you have to account for a Jadarian Price, because CJ Carr is not a weapon to run. That is not his game. And you saw him better, again, throwing the ball downfield and more passing downfield as opposed to the short game. I like CJ Carr when he's again in the pocket, throwing the ball downfield, and it'd be nice to have him flanked by 2 running backs. Against both those guys are great pass protectors, but it'd be nice to see them have multiple weapons in the backfield to where they can't key on Jeremiyah Love and they can't key on the CJ Carr, and it opens the offense up a lot more because it puts more pressure on the defense to account for more than just one guy.
Yeah, you don't need to have CJ Carr be a Riley Leonard and be a running quarterback when you've got 2 of the best running backs in college football right there next to you on your bench, and get them in there, get them, like you said, mix it up, get both of those guys in there so you don't know who's going to be getting the ball. If you only are running one of them, you know who's getting it that time around. So it'd be nice to see that.
Well, when I saw the I guess shotgun or wildcat, whatever you want to call it, play failed the first time, I was like, put that thing on the shelf. Don't run it again. But I guess the more they ran it, the more they figured out how to block it up so that there would be a crease in the middle. And I understand that that Notre Dame feels, so much pressure and urgency to get the ball in Jeremiyah Love's hands because he's so explosive when he gets the football, and he gets a few extra yards. But when all 11 eyes on defense are looking at him and they are committing more people up to the line of scrimmage, the math doesn't work. And if guys come unblocked, it's really going to be terrible. So I'm not a big fan of that formation, and I would rather, like you two say, see both backs in the backfield.
And Joe, if you don't mind, I like to always throw in stats. The big complaint from last week was that they weren't getting enough touches, just I think 16 total for the entire game. Tonight, Price, 12 for 68 yards, 12 carries, 68 yards, the 2 touchdowns. And then Love, of course, 94 yards on the 23 carries. He had 1 touchdown. So 35 touches for those guys tonight, more than double what they did 2 weeks ago against Miami.
That's a step in the right direction, at least in that category for sure. All right, we'll take our first break here. When we get back, we'll take a look at more of what we saw from the defense in this game. That's all coming up next year on the Irish Squad Show. Today's show is brought to you by Mazda, moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward is, I'm going to call out the refs on this one in the middle of an ad read. Targeting, what are we doing? That thing, we'll talk about it, was a crazy call in this game. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, let's go. Let's talk about the defense a little bit more. So we all have kind of mentioned it. Talked about Christian Gray. Burnt early on, but saved by the safety on that first drive. Drops an interception. See a crucial penalty later in the game. You know, Allison, from your perspective, where do you think the defense kind of goes from here? Is it an adjustment? Is it just more of the same and hoping for better?
I mean, honestly, I don't know at this point. Where do you go? There was not supposed to be this big of a drop off from Al Golden's defense to Chris Ash's defense. I don't know if you guys were on social media tonight, but that is the hottest topic right now on social media. People are calling for Chris Ash to be fired. He's not had two very good performances from these defenses the past 2 weeks. So I don't know. I mean, is that something that can be corrected? There's poor tackling we're seeing. Even pressure last year was sometimes a question of why there wasn't enough, and there was more, I guess, talent, if you want to say that. And so they're having even less pressure for the quarterback now. So I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say, honestly.
Well, I would say this, that there's going to be some growing pains with a new defensive coordinator. You hope that the defense is such that it's built for guys to just react and go get the football. You don't want it to be a defense where they have to think so much, and be so assignment laden that it takes away from their athleticism. But some of that is going to happen because of the new defensive coordinator. I think once they get in sync, although you would think that at this point they should be in sync with the talent level that they have. But, the guys on the other side of the ball are pretty good too. And I was shocked how many times the receivers were just wide open. And it just looked like the quarterback was a statue back there a few times. I'm like, can anybody hopefully somebody has some bad breath and blow that on them, and maybe that'll affect them. But I think it will improve, just getting more acclimated into what that defensive coordinator wants so that they can be more reactive. Usually, I know that for a normal football team, this is what some coaches used to say. Reggie, correct me if I'm wrong. It takes about 4 games for you to figure out who the hell you are. 4 games to get acclimated into, what is your personality? Well, what type of team are you? What type of player are you? We can't afford 2 more games of trying to find ourselves, but I think that it can only get better.
Well, but like you said, you don't have that luxury.
Yeah.
You're 0-2. Your defense is struggling. And again, you're struggling to get to the quarterback. You're struggling to defend the pass. And when you look at it, you got guys running wide open. You got to be, there's guys thinking versus playing. And you saw, again, how much better did we get? Now, I will say this, at least we were getting lined up. Against Miami, we had guys that weren't lined up properly. How that is, I don't know. Because, again, when you're coming into a game, you should have a game plan lined up and say, okay, here's how we're going to attack them. But at the very least, defense, you should be able to line up and play. And, again, we didn't see that. We saw more of this time. But Christian Gray, again, I'm not big on pointing out an individual, but he's got to be more solid in how he defends. I mean, the guy, when he got, when he got burned on that first play in the first half, again, it was simply, again, not doing what he needed to do. And again, that's where you can't look at the defensive staff or the play calling. Hey, your assignment is to play this, is defend this guy. Why are you biting on that? Why are you biting up on a and it wasn't even a big move. It wasn't like a double move, and he bit on it. And this requires you to be disciplined in what you do and do your job. Be responsible and take care of your responsibility and not trying to make something happen. And that's a lot of times, like I said, when you have breakdowns in defense, it's guys trying to do too much. You know, we don't need you to do too much. We need you to do your job and trust the process, trust the play, and be effective in what you do. We don't need you to make a big play. We just need you to make the right play. And that's where you get in trouble defensively, is when you got guys trying to make the big play instead of just doing their job and being effective in what you're being asked to do. I do wonder, how effective are these guys in understanding what they're being asked to do? And again, when you make those mistakes and you do it consistently, because you saw guys running wide open. We saw the same thing in the Miami game. You know, you had swing passes, out routes, that there was nobody within, 10, 15 yards of guys. It's like that's a breakdown in coverage. That's a breakdown in responsibility. So somebody's not executing at the level that they need to. So someone's not either processing what is being taught, or, again, you can admit to this, Al. If you don't know what you're supposed to do, you want to stay on the field, you'll fake it till you make it.
Yes, indeed.
That is, and that can put the team in jeopardy. So I would just like to see more discipline, but I still go back to what is going on up front. Why are we not able to get pressure on the quarterback? And then offensively, we much better running the ball, but we still had too many mistakes of guys getting through and creating, splitting our offensive line, splitting the double team, and hitting the backfield on that wildcat play. Nothing against the staff, but it's like, if this is not what your guys are good at doing, don't do it. And if you want to run these plays, you better get on their behind and say, hey, let's go. Accountability has to come into play, and that's on the players. Coaches can, put game plans in place, and you see, and you ask guys to do things, but at the end of the day, you got to go out there and play. You got to go out there and execute the game plan. And right now, I'm just not seeing that on a consistent basis. 40 points. That's a lot to overcome.
Well, and if you look at the last couple of games that A&M played, their offensive line were giving up sacks on Marcel Reed, and Notre Dame just could not. Were they just outsized at the line? Were they getting manhandled at the line? I mean, what were you guys seeing in that sense?
It was just the fact that guys weren't getting off blocks. You got to get off a block, but if you're not able to get off blocks, what do you need to do? Blitz. You need to bring some sort of pressure from somewhere to force that quarterback into being uncomfortable. And that's just not happening right now. The quarterbacks are very comfortable back there and able to stand back. And, until that is addressed, you're gonna continue to see struggles on this from the defensive side of the ball. And again, you're putting, how much time do you have as a defensive back to cover somebody?
Right.
We're questioning, and like I said, and I'm one to question, okay, hey, do your job, but at the same time, part of that doing your job is to have the guys up front do their job, get off a block, and go get the quarterback.
Yeah, and one of the things I'll say is, blitzing is one of those risk reward things that you don't want to commit so many people to the quarterback and leave receivers running wide open. But right now, if you're not getting to the quarterback, then sometimes it may not be a blitz; it can be a couple of stunts. A TE stunt, something like that, where the guys are looping on the line of scrimmage. You just have to open up the playbook and come up with more creative ways to get to the quarterback. A lot of times you might have to utilize the cornerbacks or the safeties to come, and then do you come off the corner? Do you come up the middle? Or do you just bring everybody? Jailbreak blitz. But at this point, I thought that in this game, they didn't want the receivers running free. But I think because of the ability the quarterback from A&M had, they didn't want to commit too many people to the blitz because this dude could run the ball too.
Yeah, I think that's what I felt like they were so worried about that, and rightfully so. Like I've watched Marcel Reed play a lot of football since he took over the job, and we saw it tonight's game. Like, I mean, as soon as the defensive end got too far up the field, he knew it, he saw it, he was gone, and he was running for a first down. It's like clearly Chris Ash and Marcus Freeman were so worried about that. It felt like that they wanted to keep as many guys back as they could, but they didn't really blitz Carson Beck in Miami either. So that's in the games going forward. Like, even though there's a giant drop in competition for who the Irish are going to be playing, I'd like to see more aggressiveness from the defense. And if you can't get after the quarterback with just 4, you got to send more guys and just try to change it up, I think, from the way it's looked these first 2 games.
Boubacar had a sack in the game against Miami, and I was really hoping to see more of that from him. He's been such a great story and having to overcome the injuries. And so it's, you see him and he gets that moment. It's like, yes, that felt good. Let's see some more of that. And then nothing.
Well, but it's also, you can have guys coming off the edge, but unless you're getting pressure up the middle and at least collapsing the pocket, it's very difficult to get to the quarterback. And again, to your point, AP, some stunts, but even if you're not, I'm not saying bring the house. I'm not saying bring 6 guys, but mix it up a little bit. TE stunts with a middle linebacker. Because again, KVA, that kid he's pretty talented. Drake Bowen, I will say I do believe we're missing the effects of a Jack Kaiser, because he was able to get the defense lined up, but he was one of the more efficient and like really good about blitzing and making sure that he got skinny to get through those creases to get to the quarterback, and at the very least get him off his point. And you do that by getting pressure up the middle and forcing the quarterback out wide. That's where a lot of said, with Boubacar Traore last year and the other guys who said that was having a good have an opportunity to get sacks, is we were getting pressure up the middle. Howard Cross. We had some guys that could collapse the pocket and force the quarterback outside as opposed to being able to step up and make plays.
I'm Alan and Reggie. I'm curious, from your guys' perspectives, guys who played for Notre Dame. You got a defensive coordinator who's struggled through 2 games. We got Marcus Freeman, who was the defensive coordinator at one point for the Fighting Irish. What's that like in the locker room when, you've got a head coach who built his legacy on defense and you have a defensive coordinator that's struggling? What do you expect to see from your head coach in this situation now?
I expect Marcus to just keep everybody together. You don't want to start finger pointing because that would make whatever strength you have as a unit start to disintegrate. So you focus on getting better, and you focus on getting better results, and focus on working harder to get the results you want. But you don't finger point, and you don't criticize. You may think it in the back of your head, but the only way you're going to be able to sustain any positive growth is understand that as a player, you're all in it together. I would on offense, if the defense was struggling, to me, that meant that I can't just get 5 yards of carry. I got to get 7 yards of carry. So, and that's what most, good teams will do is I've got to elevate my play because we're sort of struggling in this one area. So what is it I can do to help them, which will in turn help all of us?
I think Coach Freeman is, he'll take care of business. I would not be surprised. Again, not take over the defense, but I think he's going to have a little more more of an eye on the defense of like what's going on over there and why are we struggling as we are. And as the head coach, at the end of the day, it's going to fall on him. So I don't see him taking over the defense, but I would be shocked if he's not more engaged with the defense to see what's going on and why they're having the struggles that they're having and why they're not, being more productive at the point of attack on the defensive line with the defensive tackles and the ends. So, because I would imagine again he was more engaged because a couple of weeks ago, after the Miami game, I would not be surprised if he was a little more engaged with the offense to say, okay, what's going on here, bro? We got to get this thing together. So he is not someone he's not going to panic. Marcus is not going to panic. Coach Freeman, he understands, it's not going to be a quick fix, but there needs to be an understanding of what's expected of you. And then he's going to expect that of not only his staff, but of the players. And, and Alan was talking about, it's like, hey, as a player, what can I do to be better? Not what can I do to do someone else's job, but how can I be better in what is asked of me? Not to do more than that, but to be better, a better player, on the offensive side of the ball. Hey, how can we put our defense in a better situation? Because when it's all said and done, it is a team game, the consummate team game. And, it's not about pointing fingers, but how much different would this game be if we didn't have the botched handle on the extra point? It's the little things that happen that put you in a situation. And Alice, you kind of talked about it. It's like after you saw it, it's like, ooh. This is I don't like how that again, just little things you do or don't do that make the difference in being a successful team while having a successful play. Because it requires all 11 guys to execute at a high level. Any one guy breaks down and it impacts the entire play. And that's both defensively and offensively.
They're not really in familiar territory in the sense of back-to-back losses. Since Freeman has been the head coach at Notre Dame, they've only done it once where they had back-to-back regular season losses, and that was in 2022, Ohio State and Northern Illinois, Marshall. And so, that was tough, but they really had to pick themselves up at that point and really figure it out and get themselves together. And so they have that experience now that they can kind of rely on, look back on. Look, guys, this is what happened in 2022. The world was ending when Notre Dame lost it to Marshall, right? And they were able to get it together, to stay together as a team and to really finish out that season strong. So on the positive side of that, I mean, when you're trying to do the glass half full, I think that's, one of those things where he does. It doesn't happen often. It hasn't happened in a couple of seasons, but it has happened before for Marcus Freeman. So he's been there and he's kept his team together when they needed it the most, and they're going to need it moving forward this season.
Yeah, Marcus Freeman said what he showed the Northern Illinois kick every single week before every game last year. Well, now he's got two highlights he can show: the end of the Miami game and the end of this one. Hey, you got to motivate the guys somehow. All right, we'll take our next break here. We'll talk about what we saw from the offense. I'm probably going to go over the top with my love for CJ Carr, so we'll see if they have to bring me back in check a little bit. That's coming up next year on the Irish Squad Show. Today's show is also brought to you by DripDrop. If you're trying to stay on top of your routine, whether that's workouts, long days on campus, or staying focused through back-to-back classes, hydration is where it all starts, and that's where DripDrop comes in. DripDrop is a doctor-developed and scientifically proven for fast hydration. It uses the perfect balance of sodium electrolytes and glucose to help your body absorb fluids quickly, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of a leading sports drink. Right now, DripDrop is offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. Just head to DripDrop.com and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege. That's DripDrop.com. Promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard. All right, so a little context here, just to kind of, we're all meeting each other for the first time, really some of us, so I'm meeting all of you for the first time. I was born in 92, okay? So I haven't seen the best run of Notre Dame quarterbacks in my life, okay? It's been a tough run for the most part. Like, it has not been pretty. This is the most excited I've been about a quarterback since Brady Quinn was on campus. I mean, it's 2 games, but, like, CJ Carr, of all the bad, losing these 2 games by a combined 4 points, it's disappointing, but, like, the way he's played in these 2 games, it feels like Notre Dame has something that for the first time in my lifetime is different. It's more than Jimmy Clausen. It feels like it can be like Brady Quinn. I'm so impressed with what he's done. He makes mistakes, but he bounces back in a way that I think is really impressive for a young quarterback. So, Allison, you're around the team all the time. What's your impression been of CJ Carr to this point and what you saw tonight from him?
Well, I'm certainly not jumping on the bandwagon when I say this in all seriousness. When he walked in the door as an early enrollee back now, not last year, but the year before that, he just had a presence about him. He should have been in high school still. And he walked into that facility and we got to watch him, and he just owned the space around him. And he was a high school kid, essentially. So he's just always had that moxie, that it factor, before even really getting to see him play and actually throw the ball. So, when it was interesting to me that it was going to be such a quarterback competition coming into this year, because I really felt like CJ was the guy. He was going to be the guy, and I think he's going to be the future for the program. And that's not to say I didn't think Kenny was good. And Kenny did show up. I got to be at practice in fall training camp and got to see him, and his moxie and his confidence had grown quite a bit from what we had seen. He's a quiet guy. That's just who he is. But he grew quite a bit. And I think that's why the competition was stronger than what I think was originally thought it was going to be after spring. But CJ, I think, has got those intangibles, and he's got that confidence. It's not a cockiness or an arrogance. It's just, he fully believes in himself. And Marcus Freeman kind of joke about it, like, if it's up to him, he's going to throw downfield every single pass. But hey, if we can get some wide receivers that can really show up and be the go-to guy, is that going to be Malachi Fields? Is that going to be Jordan Faison? Or is it going to be Greathouse? All of those guys, Malachi's new yet, but we've seen some good things from Greathouse. He had a great playoff run for the Irish, and Jordan Faison's been dealing with the injuries. And so if we can get him some solid receivers to throw to, I think really the sky's the limit. It's the first time in a long time that Notre Dame has a quarterback who can throw downfield and wants to throw downfield confidently. Maybe sometimes it can get him in trouble because he's too confident or he's going to force some things, but he has that ability, I think, to be a game changer in that sense and be the guy that he can put the team on his shoulders when you need him the most. And I think one other spot where they're still kind of figuring things out, or they're really hurting, is that depth, is that tight end. Eli Raridan has the chops. He's got the body. I mean, have you guys seen what this guy looks like in person? He's huge, and he is as lean and ripped as anybody you've ever seen. He's incredible. And he's got that size, but he's kind of out there alone right now. That you can feel that having the injuries is sort of affecting them in that sense. They just have him out there. And so they need to build up who CJ can throw to. But I think once they get that figured out and CJ just continues to get more and more comfortable, I don't think he looks uncomfortable out there at times. I mean, for the most part, I think he looks like he's out there, he's in position, and he's ready to go.
Well, I will say this. because the last 2 years Notre Dame has gone into the portal because the quarterback position is so important. I mean, you either have that guy or you don't have that guy. And when you don't have that guy, you're going to struggle. And when I look at CJ Carr, I know he did enough to convince the brass at Notre Dame that they didn't need to go into the portal and try to find a guy. But I think of CJ being that guy next year. I think this year he has to sort of see all the action. I was going to use another phrase, but it's not appropriate now. He's got to be in the action and allow the game to slow down for him. As well as he's doing right now, he still has to go through making little mistakes here and there. It's just part of his growth. Yeah, I'm totally impressed with how he's playing thus far and what he's doing. And last week or 13 or 14 days ago against Miami, I think they were spoon feeding him a little bit. And then when he, took the initiative and threw it downfield, it was like, oh, this dude can throw the ball downfield. Let's just have him throw it downfield. He's got to go through some growth, which means he's going to stumble every now and then. But I think next year is the year that we'll be talking about how good a quarterback he is.
Well, my big thing with CJ is, again, he is a downfield passer. I did not like how they were trying to have him run again last week, and that's not his game. He is not a running quarterback. But, you touched on it, Allison. I think they have the receiving core to be dynamic. They have a dynamic receiving core. And, with CJ, it's, again, he does a great job downfield. Malachi Fields, Eli Reardon, those are big bodies that, you can get the ball downfield to them. I am a little concerned, again, about creating separation in routes. Faison is, at least to me, the most effective in that area. Greathouse, he's a downfield receiver. Malachi Fields. So, I like where they are, but it doesn't matter if you have CJ Carr or, Drew Brees. We got to protect them. And, that's been an issue. Like, everything starts with how effective and able-bodied you are up front. And our tackles have struggled, and that's putting it mildly. But CJ is, he's had every game he's had those eras of, this second interception. And again, it was not a good interception. Again, these are throws that he can make on a consistent basis, but he's been getting a little pressure. When he gets pressure, he's been forcing the mistakes. So he'll learn from that. And I agree with Alan on the point. He's still in that growth mode. But the thing that gets me and, that I struggle with is that you've had both CJ Carr and, Kenny Minchie in the program for 2 years, both of them for at least 2 years. And the quarterback coach mentioned this in a press conference before the season started. We're still, working to see what these guys are capable of doing. That's a problem for me. Why are you trying to figure out what these guys are capable of? And you've had them for 2 years. You should know what you have and know how to best get them out there and get them in the best situation to be effective. So CJ Carr, downfield passer, not a runner. Why are we running him like Riley Leonard? Not his game. So why do you not know that coming into this season? And put him in the best situation possible starts by understanding what are his capabilities to do that. He throws a beautiful downfield ball. And again, that's why he throws the ball downfield, because that's where his comfort zone is. That's where his skill set is maximized. So do that. But when you have him saying, we're trying to figure this out. 2 years, and you're trying to figure that out? I know what CJ Carr is. And again, I'm not there. I'm not in practice, but I know this kid can throw the ball downfield. Put him in the best situation possible. Starts by making sure those tackles are keeping him clean. Put him in the best situation possible. So CJ is going to be fine. And I'm not a big fan of like the world-beating quarterback. I just need a guy that's going to take care of the football, get the ball in the hands of his playmakers, and lead. You lead by going out there and performing consistently. And that's where that's where CJ, that's his next step, is being more consistent in his play. We know what he's capable of doing. We know he has the capacity to do it. Now it's being consistent to make the throws and make the plays on a more consistent basis.
Yeah, and
you guys are running backs. You guys just want him to give the ball, hand the ball off to Jeremiyah Love and Jadarian.
Oh, no. Yeah. Hey, I want him to throw the ball, but like a couple of weeks ago, why are we throwing the ball to the sideline?
It's crazy.
That's crazy. That's in this week, we're trying this, wildcat. When you try to wildcat, you're saying, hey, this guy's running the ball.
Yeah.
Come on.
I think it just like was replacing Riley Leonard is basically what they were trying to do there.
Yeah.
It's just have.
Well, Reggie,
Riley Leonard is gone.
Yeah, and Reggie, to your point, you didn't see Carson Beck do any RPOs or do any quarterback draws because I guess they realize what he is. And the way he's going to be the most effective is dropping it back and delivering the ball. And I still think that they may have seen in practice that, CJ has some athletic ability. Can we expand that ability by using the same way we did Riley Leonard? But they will figure out just by experience that, no, we need to have this dude throw the ball down.
Okay. It's not that he's not capable of running.
Yeah.
This kid, did you watch him in Miami? He did not protect himself.
No, yeah, it's like, he'll learn how to fly.
He's taking shots that you should not take because, again, he's not a runner.
Right.
He's not going to go out there and run anybody over. But, I mean, I don't know if he didn't see it coming or what, but he took some shots, and I'm like, please stop that. That's your quarterback. You do not put your quarterback in that position. Like Riley Leonard, hey, he's a big boy, and he loves the contact. I've had conversation with Riley Leonard before the season started. That was his game. That helped him to get into the flow of the game. That's not CJ's game. Let him step back there, give him a clean pocket. Now, he can run, but he's not a runner. Riley Leonard was a runner that could, I love Riley.
Threw it occasionally.
Yeah.
Right. Can I pose this question to you guys?
Yeah.
So at one point when the competition was underway and in the spring, Marcus Freeman said, well, he would consider playing two quarterbacks. And then coming into the fall, he was like, it's going to be one guy and that's it. What would you be opposed to seeing Kenny Minchey in every once in a while on certain packages at the goal line or in the Wildcat or something along those lines? Because he is more mobile, but also then has that threat of being able to pass it.
I'd love to see him.
Yeah.
Add him to the mix. Again, it just gives the defense one more thing to have to worry about. And I don't see either CJ or Kenny being concerned about, you're taking opportunities away from me. Just my understanding of both those young men is like they just want to win. They're just there to play and win, and they want to be a part of the team. So I would not be opposed to, having Kenny Minchey come out in certain packages but again, when you talk about packages, it affords them to maximize the talent of that individual. Same thing with CJ. Don't put him in a situation where he's not doing something that will make him the most successful based on his skill set. And I'm just not seeing that on a consistent basis with CJ. It'd be nice if they can say, okay, why do we not know what he's capable of doing?
And here's what I'll add. There's a saying: if you have two quarterbacks, you have none. But then sometimes when you have two quarterbacks, you have two. Now you can set it up to where you have two quarterbacks. The only thing I would say, if you're going to have a two quarterback system, don't have it where the other quarterback comes in just to run the football.
No.
Because you're not doing yourself any favors.
Right.
I would say that maybe CJ is better dropping back. Minchie is better on the bootlegs. So you have a bootleg package for him. But then you want him to run enough stuff so that when you put in the second quarterback, it's to drive that defensive coordinator crazy. Make that future opponents have to spend another 2-3 hours in the meeting room trying to figure out how are we going to defend this. I would say utilize them that way. But I think that in our case with two quarterbacks, we have two. But I am fully, I guess, happy to see just CJ stay in there and do his thing and leave the running to the running backs. Where me and Reggie are always going to advocate for the running backs.
Yeah, I'm kind of pro just leaving CJ out there at this point. I mean, I'm open to it if it's well coached and it's well thought out. And I think that's where some of the stuff we talked about tonight is it's not well thought out. We're already kind of at the hour mark, but I got two more things I want to hit on before we wrap up. I did have like a pre-headline written for the show because we can't cuss, but like, what was your guys' reaction when CJ Carr clapped and the center snapped the ball? Because I've never seen that before. I like that blew my mind seeing that. And I know CJ was just frustrated with the play, so he clapped. But like, if you're gonna run a clap count, you can't clap in frustration like that.
Well, to me, that's just one of those things that comes with experience. I think being a young quarterback, he's going to do some things where if he was a 2-3 year vet, he knows I can't even breathe the wrong way or the center will snap that ball. So it was one of those learning experiences he went through.
I'm sorry, that should not happen. I understand the learning experience, but you're the quarterback, and if you set the count to a clap count, you can't clap. You can't get frustrated. You have to maintain your composure because that's go. When you hear that, the center hears that, and you're going to have a lot of guys like, what the heck is the center doing? No, that's on the quarterback. But that requires your quarterback to have the understanding of I have to understand my responsibility and my role in this process. You're the quarterback. You have to run that thing. You have to orchestrate that offense and make sure everybody's on the same page. I can't give him an out on that one. Being young does not give you an excuse to mess that up. Now, like the interception, ball got tipped, things happen. But that right there, that can't happen. That just cannot happen if you're going to be the leader of that offense. You can't have mistakes like that because that could have been a lot more costly than what it was. Jeremiah, good job getting on the ball. But that should have never happened. And it's those little things that you do and don't do that lead to, not being able to execute, get a first down or pushing you back. And because I think that was a third down play and you actually lost yardage and then you're in fourth down. So I'm a CJ Carr fan. I cannot give him a pass on that one. I just can't do it.
He's going to be sick about that one for a long time, I think. I think I agree with you about the interception is one thing. Miscommunication is a totally different ballgame. My reaction when it happened, definitely much more PG than the reaction to the Tyler Buckner mishandled snap. That was a beep.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. We can wrap up here. Just kind of, go around the room, kind of final thoughts of this game and where the Irish go from here. Allison, we can start with you.
It's frustration, confusion, disappointment. Everything this season coming off of that national championship run was lined up to make another strong run to the playoffs. I mean, I felt like they were a lock to make the playoffs coming into this season. I don't know about you guys. There was no reason to believe that they wouldn't have been a lock to make the playoffs. And we knew that these first two games were going to be really difficult, but for them to drop both of them is devastating. And so it just leaves me wondering where they pick the pieces up from here. I mean, I think we're going to continue to see the offense improve. We're going to continue to see CJ Carr improve. The receivers are improving. They're developing that run game. We know how good it is. It was great to see that back and functioning in the way it should be. And I hope that continues to improve. And the offensive line play, I do think it was improved from last week. And so that's a positive as well. But the defense just feels like it took another step backwards in some aspects. And so it's just disappointing, and you just feel like, oh, where do they go from here?
Well, I was, to say the least, frustrated because at this point, this team needs to learn how to win. And I thought that they had inherited that from the season they had last year. Winning's not easy, and you got to be detail oriented, and you have to do a lot of things the right way, and this team needs to learn that. And so, although I'm disappointed, I still feel like there are good things that can come from this football team.
Hey, when you play in this game, you're gonna have ups and downs. But again, the game of college football, every game matters. So right now, the most important game now is Purdue. So I'm not frustrated because you're going to have struggles. These were two pretty good teams that they were playing. It just comes down to, what are you going to do now? What's important now? Where do you go from here? And it's squarely on the shoulders of Coach Freeman. I'm a little shocked more than anything else that him losing 2 games in a row. That right there is shocking to me. So now it's just another opportunity to see how can he get this team back on track. That's going to be the key thing. Can you get them back on track? And it starts by playing one game at a time. You got to really focus in and understand, how do you beat Purdue? You got to look at Purdue as this is your Super Bowl, or this is your national championship, or this is your playoff, however you want to look at it. You got to lock in, and you got to get those players to lock in. That is going to be the critical factor, because that's where the biggest thing is. Can you get those young men back focused after 2 disappointing losses to come in? Because very close to coming back and beating Miami, really should have beaten Texas A&M. Can you come back and reset and get these young men back focused and ready to play in a week's time? That's a question for me. So that's where I am with this team, is a question mark. Where do you go from here?
Yeah, I guess my final thought is it feels a little deja vu, a little different than last year, but you lost in Northern Illinois, and it felt like the sky was falling. And Marcus Freeman, he got them back on track and got them to the national championship game. So like everything Reggie and Alan and Allison, we've all been talking about here, it's just what happens next for this team. So not the way we wanted to start this show off with a devastating loss like this for the Irish. But for Allison Hayes, for Reggie Brooks, for Alan Pinkett, I am Joe George. Thank you all for hanging out with us here on the Locked On Irish YouTube channel. Remember, you can hit that subscribe button here. Also, wherever you find your podcast on Apple and Spotify. We will talk to you next week after they take on Purdue and hopefully come out with a W. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a good one. Peace.